Hey guys, it's Brufio. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm giving you a quick kickstart into EQ. So let's dive right in. What is EQ? What does it mean? EQ comes from equalization. That means equalize. We have to equalize, and what we want to balance or equalize are frequencies. Humans can hear from 20 Hertz, that's very low, up to 20 kilohertz. That's very high. So not everyone hears as good as someone else, but usually you can say 20 Hertz to 20 kilohertz is what we hear. So that's why a typical EQ plugin has a range from 20 Hertz to 20 kilohertz. The first step we want to do with an equalizer, as I said, is balance the frequencies so they are even across the spectrum of our song. Also for our playback systems. So if you are balancing your song, the goal is always that it sounds nice on crappy Apple AirPods or on a nice hi-fi system or in your car. So let's say you have Beats by Dre. They are very bass heavy, so they will look like this from the frequency spectrum. You have a bump in the low end and then it kind of slows down and gets even. So that's why you listen to more hip-hop stuff with fat basses, because those headphones, for example, they will give you an exaggerated bass. But if you overdo it, it will sound crappy on those headphones. If we have the AirPods, they will look more like this. Just an example. So they are very harsh in the higher register. So if you listen to like an electronic drum kit on AirPods, it's more like the clap is very aggressive and hurts a little bit in your ear. And you listen to the Beats headphones and the clap is just even and nice. So that's the balance we always have to make. Of course, if we would have like this flat curve, then maybe the sound of the song would also be not perfect. So we want to balance and even out frequencies, but we don't want to have like a completely flat frequency spectrum. That's typically also not normal, because if you have vocals, they're more in the high mids or in the highs, and if you have bass heavy music, there is more in the low end. So part 2 of getting to know an EQ is that you have to know the frequency ranges. So we have our low end and we have our high end. Let's say 50 Hertz, 100 Hertz, 500 Hertz, say 1K, which is 1 kilohertz or 1000 Hertz, and 10K, 10,000 Hertz. Let's define the frequencies with words that we typically use in music. So, you know, stuff like it's very organic. So we always use these terms in music. So let's go with good terms. What is good? 50 Hertz is punch. So you have really that punch in the low end from the kick or stuff like that. 100 Hertz would be warm. It's more like the low end, the warm. Okay. 500 Hertz is more like this seems full. Okay. This is very full. So it has low end, but it also has a little bit of crispiness. Then we have at 1K clarity. That means if we have a voice, for example, that is at around 1 to 2K, and this is the frequency where you can really make the voice audible. So that's where we have a nice hearing for those frequencies. And 10K, I would say, is airy. So that's why we have like fresh air plugins. So that's really this high end. Then we have bad terms. So 50 Hertz could also be very boomy. So boomy. So you think it's, oh, what is this? It's very boom, boom, boom. Not very nice to hear. 100 Hertz could be muddy. I think muddy is a term that you will always hear. So all this mud. So for example, if you're using a reverb plugin on a vocal and you don't cut the lows, that's where you typically get a lot of mud on your recordings. So that's why you cut the low end on reverbs for vocals, for example, or typically. 500 Hertz could be boxy. It's like you have a blanket over something. So it's like this. And if you want to hear it better, you have to take the blanket off to hear it again. That's why it's boxy. Then we have harshness at 1K. So it could also be, as I said, with the AirPods, maybe that it's really hurting your ears. And 10K could be like, it's very, like someone has a pick and puts it in your head. So we call it ice picky. All right. So these are the terms that you assume and associate with those frequencies. Once you get to know them better, you know what I mean. So if you know those frequency ranges and you have them saved in your head and in your hearing, and you mixing a song and you pull up your EQ plugin and you know exactly what you have to go for if you want to change like harshness, take out a little bit 1-2K maybe, or you add some air at 10K. You know what I mean? That's why we need that. Step 3, I would say, think like a photographer or like a cook, like a chef. Why is that? If we have the camera here, sorry, I'm not the best drawer and my writing is awful, but hopefully you get the point. When you make photos, you have to balance like colors, you know? And those colors have to translate when you have the photo in your phone, on a TV, you print it and you hung it in your room. The colors have to look the same across all platforms. The same like we have to do with our songs. Of course, you want to have the colors looking all the same on every device that people are looking at it. That's what we want to do with our EQ as well. Then we have a cook. Well, let's put in some vegetables here. A cook has to choose the right amount of ingredients to make a good meal. But it's not always the same, of course. A chef knows if he put in too much salt that it will not taste good. Nobody wants to have way too much salt. And the same with audio. Nobody wants to have an insane amount of high end. But for example, if you have a very big meal for like 500 people, you have to put a lot of salt in there to make the salt come out and taste. And sometimes we have to do that as well in audio. Sometimes we have to boost the low end quite dramatically with 10 dB maybe, but that's what the song needs. So we have to know if we break the normal rules of not pushing it too far, you know? All right, step 4. The rule, if we want to have rules, but a rule of thumb is cut before you boost. Why is that? It's a lot easier to take frequencies away than to add something. Let's say you have a bad room, you add something on the frequencies, you also bring up the room. If you cut only the frequencies you don't like, you cut bad sounding stuff out of your audio, and the other ones staying the same but are now more audible. That's what I meant before. So let's say you have a frequency curve like this. What we want to do is we want to cut a little bit maybe of the low and the high, and that flattens out the frequency spectrum. Therefore, the mids don't sound that scooped anymore because you brought down the lows and the highs. So is it allowed to boost? Of course it is also allowed to boost. If we say, okay, now we have like the boominess is gone because we cut it, and we have the mids, they sound quite okay, but let's say the frequency was like this. So let's say the frequency was like this, but it is a vocal. So you will just add a little bit of shine to it. And therefore, in this case, if you have a great room, you have a great microphone, great performance, but you want to have a little bit more high end, then boost the high end. But usually if you have problems, I would say cut before you boost frequencies. Step 5, also in the beginning, very important. Use an analyzer. An analyzer can give you all the spectrum you see, but when the audio is playing, it will show you exactly what frequency curve you have in your audio. Doesn't matter if you put in your mix in the analyzer to see how loud and how balanced is my mix, or if you put only your vocals through it. It's just nice to experiment and get to know frequencies and get to know, okay, if it sounds like this, the EQ looks like this. This is amazing to be able to later on hear something and visualize it in your head. Okay, I really hear a lot of boominess, I really hear a lot of harshness. Usually when people say something like that, other people like, yeah, for real. And you will sit there and say, oh, that's a little bit too much 2K, I think. Everyone will maybe laugh, but you know exactly it's 2K that you are hearing. And an analyzer will show you everything. And that's why I think it's great to use it in your mixes. As well, if you don't have a very nice treated room and speaker system. If you have a bad room, small speakers, mixing on your laptop, put in an analyzer and check, okay, oh man, in my room I cannot hear 100 Hz, therefore I boosted all the 100 Hz frequencies. And now I have this real bump, even though now it sounds to me alright in my room, I maybe have to bring it a little bit down so it's more balanced. Okay guys, now go to brufiomusic.com/gift, claim your free ebooks about Get Better Home Studio Recordings, mixing templates, drum samples, phantom pack, all the good stuff is, yeah, my gift to you for my community here on YouTube. And I'm very excited to share this stuff with you. Hope that helped you and you know now a little bit more about EQ. Of course, we could go deeper in the future, and we will go deeper in the future. Different EQs, what to do, dynamic EQ, stuff like that. But this should be an overall overview now for you to know what an EQ is. So thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.